Every time you think Hillary is gone away, she seems to remind us that she is not finished speaking. She is appearing again, whether she's coming out with a new book, whether she's teaching a master class, or whether she's having another interview to complain about why she lost and to blame everyone but herself. Hillary just seems to come back like a boomerang. We can't get rid of her, right? So she had a recent interview with Christine on CNN, and there were some comments made here, particularly about the MAGA voters, that population, that really gave some people pause. And here's the thing, I don't care if she said it about any other group. She could have said about any group, but it's what she says that makes you think like, whoa, what is this lady really trying to do? But it's very apparent to me when I see Hillary Clinton repeatedly appear in the media, it makes me wonder, is it possible that she will try to run for president again or run for something again? But here she is with Christine. Let's go ahead and get into this discussion here. This is something else, I got to tell you.
So when you look at how to go forward for the country, as you say, is there any area of coalition building that could happen? There are pragmatic Republicans, as you say. Could there be a whole new way of trying to, get legislation going and cross-party governance going by Democrats and certain Republicans forming a coalition?
Well, it's interesting to me how they continue to ask people that are no longer politicians what should be done to make the country move forward. It's not just Hillary Clinton. They ask Barack Obama. They continue to bring him back. Every now and then they may ask Bill Clinton. All these people that are no longer in politics anymore. And what are they going to do? Just interesting to me. But with her in particular, it would not surprise me if she tries to run for president again.
Saw the number of Republicans who voted along with Democrats to keep the government open. So there's clearly a common sense, sane part of the Republican caucus in the House. But I think they are intimidated. They oftentimes, say and do things which they know better than to say or do. And it will require us defeating those most extreme measures and the people who promote them in order to try to get to some common ground where people can, again, work together.
By common ground, I just want to tell you what she really means. When she says get to some type of common ground where people can work together, whenever you hear politicians or former politicians make that statement, at least the ones that come from DC, what they're really saying is that get everybody on board with the status quo. Because you can have common ground over other things, but if the status quo doesn't accept it, it's not going to pass. For example, there is bipartisan support in reference to something like Medicare for all, maybe not exactly Bernie Sanders' bill in particular, but giving everybody health care in this country. There is bipartisan support when it comes to stop giving this money to Ukraine for this war, this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. There's bipartisan support among different issues that affect the American people. But if those issues are not backed by the status quo and are not approved by the military industrial complex or the Wall Street corporations, then it's not going to pass because it doesn't have corporate interests. So when she says that, what she's really telling you is she's talking about come together for the status quo, remain in the center, not to the left, not to the far left, not to the right, not to the far right, but in the middle, which still has a capitalist structure.
It's the way it used to be. I mean, we had very strong partisans in both parties in the past, and we had very bitter battles over all kinds of things, gun control and climate change and the economy and taxes. But there wasn't this little tail of extremism wagging the dog of the Republican Party as it is today. Mm-hmm. And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump.
Pause. Let's go back to what she said here about that tail of the Republican Party. Listen to this.
Of the Republican Party as it is today. And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump.
Sorry, I didn't go back far enough. I think it's right there.
Kinds of things, gun control and climate change and the economy and taxes. But there wasn't this little tail of extremism wagging the dog of the Republican Party.
Let me pause there because there's something I want to point out. She's talking about that type of extremism in DC. She's talking about among the politicians. And when she says wagging the tail, she's talking about driving that party in some way, shape, or form. And she believes that came from Donald Trump. I'm here to tell you something. You know, I've lived in a lot of different places, and there was nothing that Donald Trump said on that stage when he was, whether it was debate or when he was campaigning, there was nothing that he said that was shocking to me because I had already heard people say those things in this country. The comments that he made about the immigrants, the comments that he made about Black people, you have nothing to lose, like that kind of, the comments that he made that tend to excite his base, but obviously bothered a lot of people outside of that base. For some people, especially those of us that live in like these liberal enclaves, that was shocking. This is unheard of. Did you hear what he just said? Da, 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 da. I live in Massachusetts. A lot of people here couldn't believe someone was saying those things out loud. But like I told you before, Donald Trump was covert. overt. Joe Biden is covert. You have Democrats that feel that way too. They just don't say it the way that he says it. But what I can tell you, especially when I lived in the South, when I lived in red states, when I lived in South Carolina, when I lived in North Carolina, when it was still a red state, I think it's kind of purplish now. I heard people make those statements all the time. Why are those people coming here? They're taking our jobs. They're bringing in criminals. They're causing crime. I heard those statements when I was in high school. I heard those statements when I was in college. So to me, that rhetoric was not new. That rhetoric was new and shocking to the people like Hillary Clinton, the elite liberals who have kind of surrounded themselves in these liberal enclaves around a lot of academics. And they were not used to hearing that type of language. This is why it's important that people get outside of their bubble. So for me, it wasn't new. And so for some people, it was surprising. How in the world could they have politicians in DC that are saying these things? Have you never had politicians in DC saying those things? I'm pretty sure you have, but it happened behind closed doors. Talk about the audio tapes that have been released in reference to Ronald Reagan. Some of the comments that he made about Black people. Calling Black people animals. He didn't say it on a debate stage, but he still said it. The problem that a lot of people had with Donald Trump was the fact that Donald Trump said that shit out loud. And a lot of people were just like, you don't say that shit out loud. You keep it behind closed doors, damn it. That's what that was really about. Oh, let me go back. She goes on though. Hold on. There we go.
Wagging the dog of the Republican Party as it is today. And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him?
Hillary's really not the one to talk about credibility, and we want to talk about criminal actions. Remember the Clintons and the Whitewater issue, which, by the way, they got away with scot-free. They got away with scot-free. They had their legal issues too. So she really not the one to talk about credibility. Oh my God.
Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
And how do you do that?
Deprogramming. So this is the controversial statement that kind of sent people off the cliff, is when Hillary said that the MAGA supporters need to be deprogrammed. I'm sorry, but it just, what's with the comments? Deprogramming. She called people super predators before. She called people deplorables. This is that elite liberal style of thinking. This is actually how they think. This is actually how they talk. She thinks they need to be deprogrammed. Does Hillary Clinton not realize that some of the people that voted for Donald Trump voted for him not because of the rhetoric that he had in reference to different people, but because he came and spoke to their working class communities, and Hillary Clinton chose not to? When she decided to ignore people in the Rust Belt. And here's the thing, even if she did visit, you can say all the right things. You can say, I care about the working class people. But when you come across kind of prudish and snobby and I deserve this and I went to this school and I da-da-da-da, when you go into those communities to talk to those people, you're kind of talking down to them. And it's a turnoff. And a lot of people were turned off from Hillary Clinton. That's the problem. So you have a lot of working class people in the Rust Belt. Hillary Clinton was a turnoff to them because she's one of those people where she not only thinks she's better than you, she tells you she's better than you in many ways. If she's calling you a deplorable, she thinks she's better than you. If she's calling the black people, especially in reference to the crime bill, if she's calling black people super predators and all that shit, she thinks she's better than you. So sometimes it's not even just what you say, but the way that you say it. And Hillary does not have that. She ain't got no charm. She don't know how to read a room. She don't know how to talk to working class people. And you would have thought she would have known this from her husband, because Bill Clinton knew how to talk to those communities and Hillary Clinton did not. And so she's still upset. She's still pissed that Donald Trump beat her. Here it is years later. She still can't get over it. She wrote a whole book about it. I was going to be that little girl to grow up and be the first woman president. Like, this woman is still whining. Here it is years later. Entitlement. She thinks she deserves it. She don't even think she deserves it. She thinks it was owed to her. Now, this woman, now the interviewer, Christine, goes, she's going to go in and ask, how do you deprogram?
Needs to happen.
And how do you do that? Because you said you have to defeat them by defeating their leader. Their leader
Right.
is Donald Trump. Even you have said that you expect him to be the Republican nominee. How does this change at all?
At this point, I think, sadly, he will still likely be the nominee, and we have to defeat him. And we have to defeat those who are the election deniers, as we did in 2020 and 2022. And we have to, just be smarter about how we are trying to empower the right people inside the Republican Party. Nancy.
Catch that phrase. Empower the right people inside the Republican Party. Now, if you're a Democrat, Hillary, why are you even trying to empower people in the Republican Party at all? It's just like when Nancy Pelosi said, we need a strong Republican Party. Why would you be worried about the Republican Party? Shouldn't you be focused on strengthening your own party? You know why? Because at the end of the day, both of those parties are corporate, and that's what they want to work together on.
Nancy Pelosi had a majority of 5 votes when she was Speaker. Kevin McCarthy had a majority of 5 votes. Nancy Pelosi passed consequential legislation, and she clearly had members within her caucus who, ranged across a spectrum of political beliefs and ideology, and she kept everybody together, and she kept everybody focused on the future. Mm-hmm. He couldn't do that. And so he paid a price, but more importantly, the country paid a price.
They didn't want Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy wasn't wanted. Do we not remember it took, 15 rounds for Kevin McCarthy to be elected as Speaker? And people actually thought that this was going to go great for Kevin McCarthy. People actually thought that. Okay.
And so when you see another matchup between potentially Trump and President Biden, what goes through your mind? And particularly, how do you process that this person who defeated you back in 2016 is still at it, given all that you've said? 91 indictments, you know, civil fraud, sexual transgressions according to the courts. How is this still happening?
Notice she brings up the sexual transgressions in reference to Donald Trump, but not to Joe Biden.
It's a classic tale of an authoritarian populist who really has a grip on the emotional, psychological needs and desires of a portion of the population. And the base of the Republican Party, for whatever combination of reasons, and it is emotional and psychological, sees in him someone who speaks for them. And they are determined that they will continue to vote for him, attend his rallies, wear his merchandise, because for whatever reason, he and his very negative, nasty form of politics resonates with them. Maybe they don't like.
For whatever reason. And see, she still hasn't figured out what the reason is. Because when Donald Trump spoke to those people, particularly those in the Rust Belt, he said, what did he say? I see you. When he spoke to working class people, he was like, I see you. You've been forgotten. Particularly those Rust Belt towns that were like pretty much all white. He said, I see you. You've been forgotten. If Hillary Clinton hasn't been able to figure out at this point in time why people backed him then and why people continue to back him now, she has seriously failed as a politician in this country.
Like migrants. Maybe they don't like gay people or black people or the woman who got the promotion at work they didn't get. Whatever the reason,
Not everybody who voted for Trump is anti-black, anti-immigrant, See, this is the problem again with the elite liberal mindset with people like Hillary Clinton. That's what she thinks. That's what she thinks.
Make America Great Again was a bid for nostalgia, to return to a place where, people could be in charge of their lives, feel empowered, say what they want, insult whoever came in their way. And that was really attractive to a significant portion of the Republican base.
Was it the same when Bill Clinton said, make America great again? Does Hillary Clinton, when Bill Clinton said, make America great again, does Hillary believe that it was meant so that people can insult whoever they want? A lot of people said this. Ronald Reagan said, make America great again. Bill Clinton said, make America great again. It didn't start with Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton knows that.
So it is like a cult, and somebody has to break break that momentum. And that's why I believe Joe Biden will defeat him. And hopefully then that will be the end and the fever will break. And then Republicans can try to get back to, fighting about issues among themselves and electing people who are at least, responsible and accountable.
If she believed that Joe Biden would beat Donald Trump, she wouldn't be doing all these interviews. She doesn't believe that. She believes that there is actually a chance that Joe Biden could lose to Donald Trump this time around. That's why people like her are coming out to do all these interviews. People like Barack Obama. That's why you see Ro Khanna on all these interviews all the time, cheesing all up in the camera, telling people President Biden has done a great job. And we just got to tell the story better. That's why you see people like Pramila Jayapal doing all these interviews, telling people have not been giving President Joe Biden enough credit. He really has done a phenomenal job. That's why they keep bringing all these same people to give that message and continue to hammer that message into people's heads, because there is some truth to the fact that if you continue to repeat the same words over and over. Eventually it will sink into people's head and they'll believe it. Right? This is something we learned, like as educators, this is something we learned from like the beginning, like day one. Is like, how do you get students to listen to you? How do you get them to remember what to do? You repeat it over and over and over again until it sinks into their head. So that's why they continue to have these interviews where they interview those politicians to convince the American people that, hey, maybe I was wrong. Maybe Joe Biden is doing a really good job. Problem is, we still have inflation, and people see that when they go to their bank account, they look at their bank account. When they go to pay for gas, when they go to the grocery store, people see that their material conditions have not improved. They've actually become worse, particularly for those who are working class and those who are poor. Rich people are all right, though. They still doing fine. So if she believed that Joe Biden was going to beat Donald Trump, she wouldn't be doing all these interviews.
Are you concerned that a third-party candidate on the Democratic side could thwart Joe Biden's chances?
A third-party candidate on the Democratic side. A third-party candidate on the Democrat side. Third-party candidates are challenging the Democrat and the Republican at the same time. I want to say this again. Third-party candidates are challenging the Democrat candidate and the Republican candidate at the same time. Listen to what Hillary says.
I am always concerned about a third party. That's what happened to me, as we all can recall. And
no, that's not what happened to you. What happened to you is that you ran a weak campaign that did not cater to working class and poor people. You did not speak to working class and poor people, and unless you were trying to pander to them. The couple of times that I saw Hillary trying to speak to working class people, particularly when she was trying to talk to Black people, she tried to pander with stuff like, let me throw in a quote from a Beyonce song. I got that hot sauce in my bag. Because she don't know how to talk to working class people, because she don't talk to people like that. She don't interact with people like that in her everyday life. A lot of them don't. So she's still, here we go. She's still blaming Jill Stein. It's Jill Stein's fault. Last time I checked, Jill Stein did not receive any electoral college votes. Throw that back up in people's face, guys. When they tell you it's Jill Stein's fault, it's Ralph Nader's fault, they didn't receive electoral college votes. It's not Jill Stein's fault. It's Hillary Clinton's fault, because you ran a whack ass campaign. You didn't even really try, because you figured, well, Obama did his 2 terms and a lot of people still love Obama, so they're going to like me. No, a lot of people were pissed at Obama after his 2 terms. Obama gave us a Donald Trump. There's a reason why some people who voted for Donald Trump and, from Obama in 2008 turned around and voted for Mitt Romney in 2012. There's a reason why people who voted for Obama in 2008 and in 2012 turned around and voted for Donald Trump. I mean, it's just, this is why, it's everybody's fault but Hillary. This woman really thinks she's owed the presidency.
Helped by a lot of other forces, and that could happen again this time. So, of course, I worry about anyone who might take votes away from President Biden, because, I'm in the camp, Christiane, that says, why do you actually hire a politician? What is it you want? And what I want is somebody who can get the job done. And Biden has done an amazing job by...
See, they keep doing this. They have to keep saying he's done an amazing job because they know he stands a chance of losing. Like, this is the thing. So she's like, you're going to take votes away from Joe Biden. These are the same people that scream, we need to protect our democracy, but they only want you to vote between 2 parties. They don't want people to run in third-party presidential campaign. They don't want people to run as independent. They only want people to run in the 2-party system. But even then, they don't want people to challenge Joe Biden in the 2-party system. They don't want Marianne Williamson to be there. They didn't want RFK Jr. to be there. He's not running as a Democrat anymore, apparently. So, I mean, it's just, these are the same people that say we got to protect our democracy. But vote how I tell you to vote, damn it. Don't vote for third parties. Don't vote for independents. Don't go out there and vote for a primary challenger against Joe Biden. We're going to protect our democracy, but you're going to vote the way I tell you to vote. Makes no sense.
Any measure. You know, people have talked about infrastructure forever. He passed the bill. People have talked about losing advanced manufacturing to China. He passed the bill. People have talked about getting clean energy actually to produce even more and more jobs. He passed the bill. Negotiating for drug prices, all of these things which many of us have tried to get done in, you know, the Senate and beyond, he's gotten done. And it's going to change Americans' lives for the better. And it's
Has your life changed for the better for those who are watching? Did that infrastructure bill that was passed put food on your table for your family? Did it change or decrease the prices at the grocery store? Did it decrease your gas prices? Has the infrastructure bill improved the schools in your neighborhood? This is the things, you know, these things, and this is not to say we cannot improve our infrastructure. We have to. But I also showed you that according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, that infrastructure report is weak. We're not even, they didn't even approve the dollar amount to maintain the infrastructure, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers. They didn't even do that dollar amount. These things that she's talking about, this don't put food on the table for people. Look at all the homeless people. The homeless population has increased up to 25% under Joe Biden. The end of the eviction moratorium. The cost of rent, the cost of living increase. People can't afford, the average American in this country can't even afford a one-bedroom apartment where they live. Can't afford to buy a house. Can't afford to put a down payment on a house. These are the kind of things that Hillary Clinton, not only is she leaving it out now, but she left it out in 2016. And that's why she lost.
It's going to enhance and grow our economy. And when people say, well, I don't know, pay attention, please. Pay attention to what he's gotten accomplished. But if you don't want to be for him on the merits the way I am, be for him because the alternative could end our democracy. And I don't say that.
What did I tell you, folks? What did I tell you? This could end our democracy. You telling us that third-party candidates can't be on the ballot or shouldn't be there, that ends our democracy. You telling us who we have to vote for to make you feel comfortable, that ends our democracy. And I told you before, we don't really have a true democracy in this country.
Lightly.
Our chief international anchor, Christiane Amanpour, is back with us now. Christiane, there's a lot that I actually want to discuss with you about that entire interview. But the one thing I was struck by in what we just heard was the idea that if Biden wins in 2024, that's the moment where the fever breaks. I've heard some iteration of that now for 7 or 8 years from Democrats. Do you think she really believes it?
Yeah, I think she really believes it, but more importantly, she really believes it has to happen in order to save America's democracy. As we started, I asked her, is American democracy in trouble? And she said, yes, no thoughts, no hesitation, no nothing. It's in trouble. And that's a problem for this country, and it's a problem for the rest of the world that looks to America for its democratic leadership. So it's a big deal what's happening. And we see across the world the ripple effects of the dysfunction that continues in this city.
All right, let's bring this up. Let's talk about this for just a second. I think some people thought, to that point that Hillary just made, I think that some people thought that after Joe Biden won in 2020, that would break that fever, and that didn't happen. And since the indictments, Donald Trump's support has increased. So I don't know. I could actually see Trump supporters being very upset if Donald Trump lost in 2024, or if he's not allowed to run come 2024. But these are the words of Hillary. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. She's crazy. It's still Jill Stein's fault, bud. It is still Jill's fault, she says. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. I find great solace that no one watching CNN anymore. Hey, remember the time when Senator Ted Kennedy was trying to figure out who to endorse between Hillary and Obama? And the deciding factor was when he got his Irish up when Bill Clinton said to him, you know, in a former life, this N-word would have been getting us our coffee. I remember that. And Kennedy lost his temper and was just like, you're effing racist. Really? Mm-hmm.